Sorry, welcome to the show. We're going to be discussing, obviously, not a very good result today, um, which is not the best way to start Saturday Night Live, but it is what it is. We've got a great panel on today. We've got Sarah, Jess, Tony, and Stu. So it's all going to be interesting. It's all going to be good fun, I'd imagine. So I'm just going to start by literally going to all of you one at a time and just tell me what you thought of the game in itself, how you thought it played out over the 90 minutes, and just where you thought maybe the difference were. So we'll come to you first, Tony, and then we'll go round.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. You know what? It was better than I expected. I know that sounds mental in a way that we played Man City, but we were massive underdogs going into the game today, I felt. And a lot of people said we were smashed all over the park. I didn't see the game like that. I saw the game, we all know City, what they can do. And today I felt there were moments where we were brilliant and there were moments where we weren't so brilliant. And the things that we need to work on, things that we all knew about last season, during the season. City hit us with 2 moments of absolute brilliance. And you can't afford that against a team like City. City are that good that they can punish you at a moment's notice. I thought there was some good performance today. I thought our defence was fine. There was nothing that I thought in the back line, like the defensive line, that I thought was too bad. I think we lost the game today in the midfield more so than anything else. Ericsson looked a bit overrun at times, but I come from the game today taking a lot more positives than I would negatives. I know it sounds mental, like we've just lost the FA Cup final in a derby to City, but in my eyes, I'm actually quite positive about a lot of things compared to some other games where we've lost this season. If that makes any sense, I'm trying to look at the bright side of it, I suppose.
Like taking away that more positives than negatives.
Yeah.
I do get what you're trying to say. Yeah, I see what you're trying to say. So we'll go to Sarah, who's over from the women's channel. It's the first time on the show, so welcome to the channel. It's nice to have you. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was. I didn't think we had a lot of the ball in the first half. I was kind of, when the goal went in, I think, like a lot of people, I was just shell shocked, and I thought, oh no, this could really knock the stuffing out of us. And I had visions of another like 7-0 against Liverpool, but yeah, I don't think City were all that fantastic either. So it's hard to choose between them, really. I don't think we created nearly enough chances, but I think for me the difference was when Garnacho came on. And I think it might have been worth putting him in the starting 11, to be honest. I didn't think our defense was too bad either, but it was very disappointing. I think more so just because it's City and because you don't want them to do a treble, do you? So, but yeah, I would be positive looking ahead to next season, but we really need to get some signings in. We need a striker. So just overall disappointing, but I'm glad it wasn't a walkover, really.
Yeah, I think everyone totally agrees. After 13 seconds, it was honestly, I barely even sat down from work as I've turned it on, and then we conceded in 13 seconds. I was just sat there thinking, "Oh my god, why have I should have stayed at work. It would have gone quicker." So yeah, no, I agree. I think once that first goal went in, it looked like it was going to be a much longer afternoon than it probably actually turned out to be. So what about you, Stu? What did you make of today's performance?
Look, I was all right with it. I was a bit like Tone, actually. I was okay with it. It wasn't too bad. We were overrunning midfield, but I'll tell you something though. You took if you look at what Fred did, you took that link away from De Bruyne and Haaland, and that was key to the game, actually. And that's why we were kept in the game. I think Haaland had maybe 2 chances all match. So I think Fred abandoned his footballing principles today, which he should do when you man mark a player, and I thought he did that quite well. Although overall our weaknesses were shown with our forward play. We were abject, really, which when you're in a final, when you're against City, and they will give you chances. City do give you chances. A goalkeeper that we don't really know, so he's no Edison. He's not as dynamic as Edison. I thought it was. I thought we were just abject, in front of goal. So I think overall, I'm quite happy. I know Boxer's talking about a huge golfing class. I'm not so sure there's that big a golfing class. I think we played our way into the game quite nicely after about 20, 25 minutes, but we weren't clinical enough. We weren't ruthless. We didn't attack with any real pace, although we defended well. We sat deep on occasions, allowed City to come at us in the hope that we would get the counter attack, but we weren't quick enough. Probably until Garnacho came on. I think that was probably the last 25 minutes, 30 minutes was Walker's most difficult of the last 6 weeks for him personally. So, look, games like that can go either way. So I think the disappointment for me was our control. Our short game today was awful. And that's because City do harass you, whichever way you want to say it, all the time. They're very quick at closing you down. And we didn't have a cool enough and calm enough head in there to kind of create the space that we needed at times. But look, it was a closer game than I thought it would be. I woke up this morning thinking we could have snatched a result, and I kind of still feel we could have snatched a result. The Gundogan goal at the beginning, 15 seconds in, well, you give him 5 attempts at that, he scores 1 maybe. 9 out of 10 times he doesn't score, period. So it's just one of those things. And the second goal was a shinner. If you actually look at the way he played it, it rolled down his shin. Whether it took a deflection off Varane, I'm not quite sure. De Gea was slightly to the left, which is why he couldn't get across to the right. But I think you can nitpick in games like this, which I don't particularly want to do today, because I thought at the end of the day, I'm quite happy, really. I'm not as despondent as I thought I would be. Let's put it that way. You know what? Yeah, and I get Dan.
Yes. I might get a little bit nitpicky.
Well, I could, but I don't want to tonight. So.
Yeah, I think I might a little bit later on might get a little bit nitpicky.
Okay.
So obviously we got Jess on the channel as well. So welcome to our channel for the first time. Connor assures us that you would have bullied KDB in the middle.
Oh, absolutely. He would not have had a second. I'd have just, let him know you're there early, going hard.
I thought Fred did quite well, to be fair.
I thought Fred was
Kevin
probably our
today,
second best player.
Did a really good job. I don't think Haaland did anything all game, in all fairness. I think early on he had a good kind of turn on the ball and got a shot away, and that was pretty much all I saw him do, I think, for basically the full 90. So I think that's probably what kept, in some ways, the game so kind of close. I think realistically 2-1 for the current United side against the current City side, I'm kind of going to take it, because honestly, I thought that we could have quite easily kind of got spanked a little bit, basically, especially when that goal went in after 13 seconds. I think in some ways, because it was so unbelievably early, I don't think it could. I think it was too early almost to affect us, because it was so ridiculous. And you can quite easily kind of write it off. And I think we did a really good job of kind of playing ourselves into the game a little bit from that point. It's just we lacked this sort of clinical edge in the second half. I really don't actually think City were at their best today, to be honest. So it's a shame we couldn't capitalise a little bit more. I do just think we're lacking kind of in certain areas across the field.
Do you think with City, though, it was the fact that they weren't brilliant, or we stopped them from being brilliant? Because that's how I thought with Fred. Fred was cutting off De Bruyne, like Stu said, the entire game. I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, Fred is just cutting the game into pieces. And Ten Hag had a really good game plan, I think. I think a lot of people go, maybe we should have been a little bit more adventurous in the first half. I do think that we didn't create really anything till the 60th minute. An interesting stat, though, is we had a better expected goals than City did the entire game, which is mad when you think about it. Watching the game in full, it didn't feel like that. But there's a lot of variables that went into that game. But yeah, I don't think City were at their best today, however.
I think we stopped them playing. That's the thing. I think we did stop their free-flowing football. And Jess is right, actually. The first goal was an irrelevance, because we've actually scored today. Come on, mate. So it didn't really matter. 15 seconds in, it makes no difference to you. I was watching on Twitter, actually, and I was reading some imbeciles who know nothing about football, know nothing about the game at all, oh crikey, 15 seconds down, we've got that. Honestly, mate, you just get on with it. You just take your goal, take the spot kick, and away you go. It's all about mentality when you concede an early goal and getting, and playing yourself back into the game. So 15 seconds in didn't matter, but we did stop the playing. Although Ten Hag tried to adopt a similar style that he played back in October, I think, when we beat them 2-1 at home. We were a goal down then and we beat them 2-1. He tried to adopt a very, very similar style. But for me, Bruno out on the right doesn't work. When you push him out there, you isolate him, and we can't afford to isolate him. And what happened in the first half, he tended to just drift into his natural position in the middle. He came looking for the ball. So there was no wide outlet on the right. Rashford is having a poor time against Kyle Walker. So our attacking was nullified really based on those two issues.
So we had a chat on the last show about how he could possibly line up, and we sort of said that Fred would start for that sole purpose. The first question I've got for everybody, which is something that I actually sort of agree with from the last show, is do we think that Ten Hag got the starting lineup slightly wrong? I personally think that maybe Eriksen shouldn't have played and Weghorst should have played because Weghorst was never going to have a huge input coming off the bench. It's just not what he's done for us. But he's very good at tiring players out in the first instance, in the first 40 minutes, in the first 50 minutes. And it's not so much a basis of Weghorst deserves to start. It's more that it would have stopped Fernandes being pushed over to the right because I think it's so detrimental to us that we keep moving what is our best player. Basically wherever on the pitch, because he's played all sorts of positions this season in particular, to fit. It just don't seem to work when Rashford plays through the middle. We seem to lose a lot off the left and we miss Bruno out the middle. So do you think there's a case for Ten Hag that he sort of got the starting 11 wrong today, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you there. I mean, I did think it was a slightly strange decision bringing Weghorst off the bench because, well, yeah, I mean, clearly, he's hasn't been getting the goals, so that's one area. But even just things like his height, even you'd hope. I mean, that you'd have him there in the air, for set pieces and corners and things. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see how different things might have been had he started. And then Bruno, I think, not played in his best position, obviously. And I go back to what I said at the beginning about Garnacho, just seeing how much he offered when he came on. I might have just taken a chance with him if I was the manager. But
yeah, me and Stu discussed Garnacho on the last show, and we were saying that it's one of the reasons why we would have started Weghorst. It's because he has the natural ability to sort of chase down, and then the players would be a little bit more tired for Garnacho later on in the game. I think Garnacho has been better off the bench this season, but it's very much one of those where he keeps making them impacts that why not give him a chance. So I'll ask you all a simple question. If you could have made one change to the starting lineup today, who would you have put in? So we'll go to Jess for that.
I'm currently torn between starting Garnacho or starting Weghorst. I can see the argument for both. I'm gonna go with I'd start Garnacho. I think every time he comes on, he kind of changes the game. He brings a sort of boost of energy to it that we've not been seeing. And I think at this point, why can't he start? I understand the kind of argument for a super sub and, wait for the defenders to tire out and then put on a player such as Garnacho to kind of carry on running them ragged. But if we could have had him on from the start, and he, not to say that he would have played like he did when he came on, but if he had, I think that, we could have been in with a better chance there, because I would have said he was sort of the standout performer from today, from the limited time he was on the pitch.
Yeah. What about you, Stu? Who would you have picked?
Yeah, well, I would have fallen on the Weghorst side, because that allows you to play Bruno in his natural 10/8. Look, I get the argument about Garnacho, I do. And I think you both make really good points. For me, he's not quite there yet as a starter. He's just a little bit, I'm not going to say immature, but his decision making isn't quite there yet. And there's a couple of occasions today when he would drift past, he got to the byline, lovely bit of skill to get round Walker, but he didn't look up, so he didn't know which pass to pick. It was almost a blind pass into the middle. And if he'd got a bit of a scoop on it, I think Bruno was in there for a head, and we may well have scored. Garnacho's one of those where euphoria takes over as the emotion. He comes on, he does great, but can he do it from the get-go? I've also got questions on his defensive side of it. I don't think he would have offered, not that Rashford offered Luke Shaw a lot of defensive cover today, but I'm not really sure Garnacho would have. That's my only reservation, Sarah and Jess, but I wouldn't disagree with you that I think he's probably knocking on the door for a start. It's a difficult one actually with Garnacho. It really is. I do like him as a player. He's very dynamic. Maybe just not for me right now. I don't think he would get it.
It's down to his age, really. He probably just needs another season, maybe, of kind of first team football under his belt, maybe coming on off the bench, a few starts, depending on the game.
A few starts throughout the season. I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Game, then the starting an FA Cup final against Man City.
Yeah.
Fully understands, you know.
But
That's kind of on the young side. I think I just got excited because he was just the only player that really brought me any joy today, to be honest.
No, I agree. But I take Sarah's point, though, that sometimes you've got to give it a punt, haven't you? There's nothing wrong with taking a punt, and I get that as well. Me and Dan were talking about what Weghorst offers, and he offers very little in front of goal, but he's an absolute menace. I'm a centre half, and as a centre half, you don't want to play against people like that because he just drags you out of position all the time. He's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. But he's just not clinical. But that's what I would have done anyway.
Yeah. What about you then, Tone? If you could have changed somebody, would you have changed somebody, and who?
I mean, I know what Ten Hag was trying to do today, and to be fair, it did work quite a lot. And I think I agree with Stu's sentiment about Bruno on the right. I don't think he's wasted on that position. I think he's better in the middle. For me, Eriksen's game wasn't today. This wasn't the game for him. He's brilliant. I think a lot of people say he's past it. He's this, that, and the other. I don't think that. I just think certain players suit certain games, and this game today did not suit Eriksen at all. We didn't see the best of him. I would have probably, the more and more I think about it, even though I'm not the biggest Weghorst supporter, I think that in these sort of games where you need a top heavy guy who can hold the ball up, Weghorst would have done all right. And I do think Sancho, the last few games that I've watched him play, particularly against Chelsea, where he played on the right for a large part of the game, he actually looks better on the right for me, like he did at Dortmund. But and I would have played Rashford on the left. So maybe just swapping Weghorst for Eriksen and obviously moving Fernandes back into his cam position and moving Sancho to the right.
See, that's exactly the lineup I picked before. So you would have taken Eriksen out and put Weghorst on, Rashford from the left, Sancho from the right. And I thought it's just because it was one of them games. It sounds mental to say it after we went 1-0 down after 13 seconds, but it was one of them games where we needed to just keep it level as long as we could and tight as long as we could, and then hope for a break, hope for a free kick, hope for a decent set piece, just something to keep it tight, close. So I just wanted to touch on in terms of the defending. So my personal opinion today is the defending for the first goal was terrible. He wasn't awake. Varane was really slow, and Eriksen was really slow. And then the second goal is really similar. Varane just doesn't seem to react to the ball to the edge of the box, and Wan-Bissaka's a little bit late to react to the ball to the edge of the box. I do think they should do better with the ball. Just thought in those big moments, or the moments where they scored the goals, there was just a little bit off focus in terms of the defence. I do think Varane did not have a great game today in terms of. I thought he was good with the ball going up in the air, but in terms of passing out from the back, I didn't think he was very good today. I think he made something like 24 sideways passes, but couldn't seem to break that midfield line. So with that in mind, do any of you think De Gea was at fault for the second goal? And do you think the defending could have been better for the second goal? Open to interpretation.
I genuinely believe De Gea 3 seasons ago saved that second goal. I genuinely believe that, and I mean that in the sincerest way possible. I'm not going to blame De Gea for today because you know what I mean. There was a number of things that went in against us in the terms of like the defense weren't blocking the ball. A lot of people going for the first goal should have died for it, mate. It doesn't matter if he died for it; he weren't saving it. It was just a worldy goal.
The first goal was just quality, yeah.
Look, everyone knows my opinions on De Gea. I'm not going to say it today. It's not the place to say it. And to be fair, you know, he's not the reason why we lost this game today. But De Gea 3 seasons ago saves that second goal. That's all I'm going to say.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with that, and I'll tell you why. Because the way that you set up from a corner occasionally, De Gea was slightly. He wasn't central. He was 10 yards left of where he should be. But if you look at the trajectory of the football, as it kind of rolled down Gundogan's leg and then off his foot, it took a bit of a deflection, but a really, really wicked curl at the very, very last minute, and that's what stopped De Gea getting there. Plus, there's no way De Gea would have seen it. Absolutely no chance. He wouldn't have been able to catch the flight of the ball. There was 3 or 4 players in front of him. So yes, he was slightly to the left. That's because he didn't backpedal enough from the corner to face up ready for any header or shot. So I can't give it to De Gea on this one. I would do. Yeah, everybody knows what I think about De Gea. I would give it to him all day long, but on this occasion, I don't think he could have stopped it. And when, as I say, you see it, the swerve just at the end, he's got no chance, unfortunately.
Sarah, Jess, anybody you want to jump in?
Yeah, it was a weird one because it's kind of one of those goals. I think that when you see the replays, you kind of see more of that, like Stu just described. At first, I didn't think he did well enough, but with the deflection and everything, I'm not gonna blame him either. I mean, I have to admit that I don't have the confidence in him that I used to have. But yeah, I think the defense has a lot to answer for as well. They didn't do their jobs well enough there either. So
yeah, I tend to agree. I think the reality is the ball never should have even got to Gundogan uncontested. The fact that he was left in so much space is the biggest problem, really. Whilst I do think De Gea's positioning was a little bit off, like Stu mentioned, I don't think he comes back kind of central in goal enough. And like Tony said, I do think a couple of seasons ago he's potentially saving that. I don't think with the kind of other factors that are at play, I wouldn't look at that and go, oh, that was completely De Gea's fault. He lost us that game kind of thing. I think there were, like, it's popped up now, his distribution, once again, is not great. But yeah, I think really questions got to be asked more on the defenders there than De Gea, because I think he can't see it either until very late on. He's going to struggle to see that. So whilst I'm not really his biggest fan anymore, and granted I do think he potentially could or should have done a little bit better, it's not as horrendous as some of the other things that I've seen him or other keepers do.
Yeah, so I've got to hold my hands up and say I was off. I was completely done. When I saw the first replay, I could not believe what I was watching in terms of how he's not saved it. So I was full on like, I'm done with him, finished with him. It wasn't until I saw the back view of the goal that you realise just how many people was in front of him. And you see the slight deflection. I think it's Wan-Bissaka. It might take a slight deflection off the back of his boot, and it just inches it away from his hand. And he actually does quite well to get over there and get his hand to it. It's just a shame he couldn't push it round the post. So I went from sort of blaming him to why have the defenders not got out quicker for him? Because we've seen a few times this season he's done something and he'll chuck his arms out as if to say what's gone off. And I think this today on both occasions, and there was an occasion where it was a header in the first half that hit the side net, and I thought it was a goal. He did the same thing, and I think the defense let him down a little bit today. He's played quite well. So we did a special on David De Gea, and ever since the special, he's played really well. So Yeah, I went from blaming him to sort of being a lot more understanding come full time. I wanted to touch on just a few of the incidents in the game. In terms of there was a tackle by Casemiro, which I thought was a little bit naughty. And I thought he was quite lucky that he got a free kick for a start, which I thought was weird. And then the handball, and then there's also a kick out by Bernardo Silva, which I thought he was quite lucky with as well. So we'll start with the handball first, and we'll just go around. Do you think it was a penalty? Or do you think that the law needs looking at? We'll start with Sarah.
At first, I didn't think it was a penalty, but then to me it looked like, it definitely touched his fingers, and he kind of put his hand out. So I mean, I don't know whether I'm answering with my head or my heart here, like if it had been the other way around, but I think it was a penalty.
What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I mean, I know he's jumping, but his hand is very, very high in the air. I think that's what gets me. It's the fact that his arm is literally kind of up here somewhere. Normally, I try and take my kind of biased hat off when I see decisions like this, and I'm trying to think about how I'd feel if it was given against United. And I guess my argument would be that he's jumping, your arms are all over the place when you jump in. But I just think, with it being so far out, yeah, it's probably a penalty, and that's probably the right decision. But yeah, I think if it had been given kind of against us, I might have changed my opinion a little bit.
What about you, Stu?
Yeah. The trouble is nobody knows. Nobody knows what the rules are. Nobody understands what handball is at the minute. Look, if you're jumping alongside a player the way that Grealish and Wan-Bissaka were, you're talking about a 1 yard, if that, deflection. Yes, his hand was up, but if you play football, it's fucking impossible to jump with your hands by your side. I mean, it literally is impossible because you get this spring. So look, if I was playing, I'd have been fuming. I really would. I'd have been absolutely fuming for conceding the spot. But as I think Grealish is an absolute twat, I don't really care. And yeah, so in that case, it was a definite penalty. No, I don't. I'm with the girls. I think it's a real tough one to call. I think it's. I do. I think it's tough. I do. I'm struggling with it, really. I've got to be honest. Inconclusive, I know.
Inconclusive. What about you, Tone?
Letter of the law, it's a pen, but the law's stupid. That's how. Yeah. This is the thing. Like, they're going about a natural silhouette, but if you've ever jumped in the air, you've never jumped without your hand being slightly up for the momentum and the balance. I think if it goes against us, I'd be fuming. But then, one, it's Grealish, and I don't like Grealish, and two, it's against City in a final where we needed a goal, and the goal weren't coming any other way at that point.
That's true.
And it made the game so much more interesting for everyone, even not just for us, but for the game itself. So, but yeah, look, they said JR just put Martinez had them against us this season. The law needs addressing, and I think Gary Lineker said they are going to address the law at the end of the season, and obviously review that and make adjustments. But yeah, it's a daft law, but by letter of it, it was the right decision.
Yeah, I would sit on that same fence. I think that the law as it is today on handball is handball because it's away from his body and it hits his fingers. I just don't. I think the law needs looking at. Because we've seen it with the penalty that Roma possibly should have got in the Europa League final. You've got the Martinez one where it hits his leg and then hits his arm. There was the Fernandez one as well where he sides on and it hits his arm. So I do think they need to definitely look at it. I was looking at something on Twitter earlier, and someone suggested that handballs like this, if they want to keep them in, shouldn't result in penalties. It should result into an indirect free kick because I think the word was inconsequential. So because it's not deliberate, and like your hands, it's because his hand sort of comes down and then goes back up as he turns.
But
So
it's in the penalty area, so you can't give him a direct kick.
But this is what I mean. There's got to be something else they can do, because it's just so different from league to Europa League to Champions League. There seems to be like a different set of rules for each like tournament, and it's just not consistent, is it? So that'll be given then. I don't know if you'll be able to remember one, but there was one against Chelsea a few years back where his hand's up here and it touches his hands, and we never got it. And it's absolutely baffling to me. Did you all see the Casemiro incident?
I
loved it. What did we make of that?
Okay.
Lucky boy or Yellow Max?
Get on with it. You just got to get on with it now. The problem with football today is you've got two types of player. You've got somebody who can play the game and enjoy playing the game, walk off hobbling, got blood coming out of it, his leg or his arms or whatever, and they'll shake the player's hands. Today, or you've got an absolute girl's blouse, or just go down and start rolling around if you just give them a bit of a shoulder pod. You see, I'm old school, Dan, so perfectly fine with me that tackle. Get on with it.
Yeah. I thought it turned into a little bit meaty at one point towards the end of the first half as well. Everyone was having a little niggle. Yeah.
We don't do it enough.
That was something I was going to touch on. While I remember, there's a couple of videos going around of like Bernardo Silva shunning Fernandes at half time, like pushing him away, telling him to go down the tunnel. Do you think there was an element as a players was a little bit soft today? Like I saw Rashford pull out of a header, and there was quite a few vocal boos from the Wembley crowd. Sancho was doing it a little bit as well. Do you think we're lacking that sort of? Because we've got a lot of technical players, but we haven't got sort of I know Casemiro is a little bit like that, but Rodri seemed to run the game for me today. He was strong, constantly knocking people off the ball. Do you think we're missing that a little bit?
Yeah, big time. We need someone in the middle who's like what's the word? He does the dirty work, because Casemiro is very rock and roll. I think he goes in with challenges without much thought, but it works for him 9 out of 10 times. If that makes any sense, he's a brilliant player, but he does go into those challenges a bit naive sometimes, even though he's a very experienced player. I think Rodri's a general. He knows exactly what he's doing. He does those little pushes, those little feints. Like Busquets did for Barcelona. Just, you know what I mean? He does the little things that no one notices, but if you watch the game in detail, you notice what he does.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some like other. It sort of dragged down a little bit in the second half, and it turned a bit patchy. Sarah, did you have any issues with Ten Hag's substitutions, or do you think he made the right choices?
No, I mean, well, yeah, I think bringing Weghorst on when he did, maybe just purely because, I mean, I take on board what everyone said about, the attributes that he has, but I think when you're looking for that equalizer, I don't know, I didn't see it coming from him.
No.
Garnacho, yeah, that was, like I said at the start, that changed things for me. It was it actually, in a weird way, that one made me feel better about just kind of remembering, the player that we've got and what his future can be, and he's shown so much promise that I'm just really looking forward to seeing what's to come from him. Yeah, but who else was there? McTominay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be his biggest fan anyway, but yeah, I didn't have any really strong feelings on it. Like, I didn't think he got it disastrously wrong, but I don't know. I think I was just hoping for miracles at that point.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? Do you think he got pretty much everything correct? Do you think he maybe should have turned to someone unexpected in the FA Cup final?
I think it's difficult. I was obviously watching the game, and we reached that point where kind of subs were coming on, and I looked at the City bench and I looked at the United bench, and the kind of difference is pretty insane when you think that City are bringing on like Foden, Ake, I think they brought on Laporte, and we're bringing on Weghorst and McTominay. No disrespect to those guys, but we've already said Weghorst isn't going to come on really and score us a goal. You know, he's not a kind of super sub. He does a job, and he came on and kind of did that job. We've already been kind of touched on Garnacho. I thought he was fantastic. As close to a game changer as we were going to get. But I'm not really sure who else we could have brought on. I think Pellistri, when he's been on, he's played really well. So maybe another kind of young player like him. But there's not really anyone on the bench that you can look at and think, right, rely on you to kind of turn this game around. You know, and like it says, they still have Mahrez and Alvarez on the bench. You know, they're first team starters. There's not really anyone on our bench that, whilst the young players are excited and they've played really well for us, there's no one that you can kind of think, oh, they will come on and they will do something here. I think Garnacho, like we said, he came on and he did really well. So I think for me, Ten Hag did kind of perfect for what he could do. I think like we said, there's some arguments for who could have actually started, and that would have maybe affected the subs later on in the game. But based on where we're at in that position in the game, I think he made the right call.
So I'm gonna just jump in with a little something here, because I've been banging on about this for months, and I'm hoping that this final sort of gets the point I was trying to make, which is leading up to these sort of games. For me, there's been a lack of rotation of the squad. So there's certain players that Solskjaer has thrown into the deep end, like Alanga, like Pellistri, like just there's a few players that he's just sort of been stuck with and gone, I'm going to give it a go. Do you think there's an element still of Ten Hag backing himself into a little bit of a corner because he only plays the same 12, 13 players? So he sort of hedged his bet with Weghorst and throws out Alanga when it's not really worked with Weghorst. Could he took the risk with Alanga? And why not if he couldn't?
Yeah, he backed himself into a corner 6 months ago, unfortunately. But, you know, that's purely and simply down to not understanding the Premier League. You know, I get that, and I ain't got a problem with it. He's had a miraculous season as old Eric, and we should all be grateful as fans. And the girls are spot on, to be honest. I've got nothing really to add to what they said, because they're absolutely right. I would have given Pellistri a go, though. I would have done, because I think Pellistri in at the 10 will be a dangerous animal for us. The way that he plays, the way that he keeps the ball, and the way that he drives, he's really dynamic. Weghorst for 20 minutes is a waste of space. Well, you know, we had this conversation last week, Dan. He's a complete waste of space for 20 minutes. You need him from the start. There's no point bringing him on. I like Weghorst. I think he's great. I think he plays a different brand of football that the old eye test doesn't like. But when you're on the pitch, he's brilliant for you, absolutely brilliant, because he will do your chasing. And once he hunts and he hounds, he would have absolutely. Diaz was on easy street today. He's such an arrogant idiot, Diaz, as well. I just don't like him. I don't like his persona. He just winds me up. But Weghorst would have done something with him. That Akanji, he's got a lot of arrogance around him. Carl Walker got a lot of arrogance until Garnacho came on. It was a different story. He could hardly catch a breath. And this is what you need to do. You need to have these players that are willing to step outside what everybody else considers to be a footballer and do what you need to do on that pitch. You know, if Jess, do you play? Do you? Sorry, did I kind of get you play?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you, centre midfielder, I presume?
No, right wing.
Right wing. So you'll know then the advantage of having a centre forward that pulls defenders apart, that gives you the space to get into behind, and that's what Weghorst does. He's not great at anything else. He just isn't. But it's that thing that he does. It's that one thing that he does on the pitch that gives everybody else an easy day's work. So for 20 minutes, there's 0 point bringing him on, unfortunately. And so, yeah, Sarah's 100% right there. So for me, I'd have brought in Pellistri and really mixed it up. Pellistri would have been a thorn in their side, a real problem. Same with Garnacho, dynamic, bit direct, that could do something when he's got the ball.
Yeah. What about you, Tone? Do you think that there's a question mark over the way he's used some of the players? So Box has just made a good point, and we've spoke about Iqbal on previous shows. He was refused a loan. We've played 64 games this season, and he's not played a single minute. And he was also refused from going to the World Cup, the Under-21s World Cup. And I just find it a bit baffling. Just the way in which he hasn't used some players.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really. I think being someone who's played in teams and stuff, and when you're not playing and getting the minutes, and then you want to have the opportunity to get minutes, and then you're getting told no, but they're not using you. I get that dilemma in your head, and it is a frustrating one especially for a young lad like Iqbal. You know, he'll want to get out and he'll want to play. And yes, like Fulham last week was a no-brainer. It was a dead rubber. You know, I know people going about the third, fourth place thing, but in retrospect, does it really matter where we finish as long as we're in the top four?
We had a vote about that on the last show, and apparently it did.
Well, yeah, the 2 million, but you know, but Iqbal could have got a couple of minutes here and there. There's games like Charlton, like in the Carabao Cup this year, could have got minutes. Pillistri, whenever Pillistry's come on, I've always been there like, why doesn't this guy play more? He's good. He's really, you can see there's something about him. But maybe it's a point of like Ten Hag watches these guys day in, day out, and maybe he's trying to wean them in until he feels like they're ready. Like even Garnacho, like everyone was saying today, Garnacho may have had a right to start, well, not a right, but may have been able to have started today based on how good we all know he is coming off the bench. And but Ten Hag maybe has longer term plans in place. You know, I know with Kobe Maino as well, like people were expecting him to get a few minutes last week. He didn't, did he? Did he get a few?
No, he didn't.
No, I completely forgot last week. But it's a strange one, really. But I think when you've got a settled starting 11, you don't want to change that, because Ten Hag has come across to me like there's been a lot of games where I've gone like in the Carabao Cup, for example, where I've gone, well, he can change that, he could do that, and he ends up playing pretty much his starting 11. It has been to his detriment at times. I think there's been times where he's cost a lot of injuries to players when really didn't need to sacrifice them in that sort of game. But that's the way, I guess he's all or nothing sort of guy. So I guess that's the kind of way he operates. But it does to me feel a bit sad that these sort of players didn't get a bit of an opportunity, especially in the Cups this year. But maybe next year, the fact that we're going to be focusing predominantly on the Champions League and the Premier League, maybe, and with maturity of these players, them coming through next year, we might see a lot more of them, or they might go out on loan or be let go. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting come the transfer window what happens, because to me, when you don't play the players you've got at your disposal, your Elangas, your Palestris, your Iqbals, irrelevant of experience, or there's got to be an element of trust. To me, it's a sign that he doesn't completely trust the squad he's got. One of the questions I want to ask you is, so obviously we've seen the difference of the teams today. We was only missing Martinez, really, I think, from the starting 11 of what we could pick from what we have. Martial is an absolute enigma, because as much
he'd have scored a hat-trick today.
But yeah, he would have gone off at half-time injured. That's the problem. So when moving forward, there was a talk about like who are the pretenders of the squad. I thought we lacked a little bit of something today. So of the 11 that started, how many do you foresee still being in the starting 11 next season? And which two places in the starting 11 do you think is most urgent to be replaced? So we'll start with Sarah.
Well, definitely striker. And I'm just going to put it out there. I would love to have Harry Kane.
Yep.
Would love it. I mean, you're guaranteed goals. And yeah, I've got all my fingers crossed that he does make that move. I don't know if I see Fred necessarily starting next season, but then again, I'm not sure who would be starting in his place. So I'd have to think about that one. Yeah.
So what about you, Jess? Do you like, which two positions do you think are the most important to strengthen going forward?
I mean, I think striker is kind of a no-brainer. I'm sure we're all just going to immediately come out with that one.
Yep.
Because without saying.
Not me.
But I think for me, it's striker, and I think we need to shore up our midfield a little bit. I think we've kind of mentioned it early on in the show today. That's kind of where we lost this game. I think Eriksen's looked a little bit off the pace since he's come back from injury. Now, whether or not he'll kind of get back to his kind of pre-injury form, we're sort of at the end of the season now, so it's potentially good timing for him to have a bit of a rest. But yeah, for me, 100% a striker, followed by potentially just someone to shore up that midfield and just kind of help us to offer a little bit more.
Yeah. What about you, Stu?
100% we need a striker. My biggest issue is I think Ten Hag's going to have to change the way that we play, because our wider players, because we don't play with traditional wingers, our wider players don't toss the ball in at all. And if you're a number 9 who lives in the 6-yard box, you need service. And you're not going to get service off Rashford, and you're not going to get service off Antony. So we definitely need a striker. Harry Kane, yeah, absolutely, why not? But you're going to have to slightly change the way that you play to make sure you feed him. And he will get those goals. I mean, he scored 30 league goals in a very, very poor Tottenham side, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that's my only issue with a striker, is the way that we play. So that's number one. Secondly, Jess is right. We need and I'm going to get jumped on here, and I don't really care. We need a Rabiot in there, because what Rabiot is, he's strong, he's big, he's powerful, but he can score goals and he can deliver. So we need somebody like that type of player. I know we were linked with him in the summer, and everyone said January or whatever, and everyone said, no, he's rubbish, blah 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 blah. That's up to you. But if you watch what he does, then you'll see what he can bring alongside alongside Fernando, Casemiro, and Bruno, because Bruno is a 10, a dynamic Rabiot who, like I say, is a decent player. Really is a decent player. And Casemiro would be great if we could find and service this new number 9 who we so desperately need. So that's what I would do. The other one I would bring in is Brozovic, but we're going to hope we're getting him. And I think he's probably the wrong side of where we need to be in terms of age. But again, he would complement Casemiro brilliantly with the way that he is. But Rabiot would be perfect for us.
Right,
sorry to say.
I feel like you're going to go a little bit different.
Goalkeeper. We need a new goalkeeper who can play with the ball at his feet, can actually claim across, can play out the back. I know it sounds horrible, because I'm not trying to be horrible to De Gea, because De Gea has been a brilliant servant for us, and I'm not denying that, because a lot of people go, "You've always hated De Gea." I haven't. Go back on my tweets from 5 years ago. You will see how much I used to be a fanboy of De Gea. But the thing is, I like to think I'm a realist as much as I am an optimist. I like to think in a lot of ways, a goalkeeper, you build, like, the goalkeeper's almost become the quarterback of a team. You look at teams like Liverpool and Man City, the goalkeeper starts the attack from the back. And De Gea, as much as he's gained us so many points, you can see now that to his game, there's so many things that Ten Hag wants to do that De Gea just can't do for United. It's there, like the short balls, playing from the back, even coming out playing the high line. He'll want De Gea coming out of his box a lot more. De Gea can't do that as well as, say, someone like I think if we don't go for Diego Costa this summer, we're idiots. He's going to be the best goalkeeper in the world in about 2 years' time. He's the only goalkeeper out there that is. David Ray is a good goalkeeper, but I don't think he can tie his laces up. But I don't know why, but I don't think it'll be a priority with the money we've got for this transfer window. But to me, that is just as important as a striker. I think Rabiot's a sure thing for me. I don't know why, but people who don't rate Rabiot are just idiots. They just don't realise how good he is. Watch him for France and how good he's been for France. Juventus, the amount of times I watch him Juventus, he's probably their best player, one of their top 3 best players in every game I watch him play. I think it's very easy to go Rabiot's this, that, and the other because it's easy. But you watch a game in detail, you'll notice how good a player he is. But for me, goalkeeper is number one. And that's not because I don't love De Gea. I think if De Gea wants to stay as a number two, that'd be great. But I think also as well, you need competition for place at this club. The thing is, if De Gea has bad performances, who is there to step on his toes and go, look, I'm coming for you, right? And as much as every player, every fan respects him, there comes a certain point where you have to go. You can't just live on the coattails of your past. You know what I mean? You have to show that you're still here in the now, performing for us. And for me, as much as he's got the Golden Glove this year, which fair play to him. You know what I mean? I didn't think he was going to get at the start of the season. I think a lot of that is more so to do with just as much to do with him as it is to do with Varane and Martinez and Shaw and how good they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree in terms of goalkeeper. It's just a difficult one. There's been some 10-hour quotes out after the FA Cup final that are a little bit more of an indication that De Gea is probably not going to be number one if he stays. And he said in one of them that he wants to get his ideas across to the board, which I find interesting, as if he's being forced into something that he doesn't want. The only thing I've got with De Gea leaving is that the goalkeeper jersey has never been an easy one to fill. I've been watching some of the Premier League years, and the difficulty we had in replacing some of the keepers was just incredible, to be honest. It weighs heavy on a lot of players. So the other thing is, if he stays, he's going to be on 250 grand a week, probably. Can we be taken seriously as a club if our backup goalkeeper is on more than any other goalkeeper in the league?
Do you know with De Gea, right? Let's be honest. If De Gea leaves, what big European club takes him?
I've had this discussion. I don't think there's many.
There's not many.
I don't think there's any.
I think at some point you're going to see De Gea is playing negotiation tactics. He will go, well, I'm on 400 grand, so I want 250 grand a week. If you just at some point, he'll go, if we're not offering him that, he goes to any big club in Europe, they'll probably go, we'll offer you 100. He'll come back and bite your hand off for 150 or 120. It'll still be a lot for a goalkeeper who's maybe going to play second choice, but yeah. I don't think, I just can't, I can't see it, but yeah.
Yeah, so one player that I wanted to mention, which no one mentioned, which I think it was mentioned in the comments. Let me just have a look. Yeah, it was, which was Declan Rice. Cool. So if I had a choice to take a player or two players, it'd be Rice and Kane. And I'd just take Declan Rice because I think he's so underrated as a footballer, an actual footballer. So he's very good at like screening defense, etc. But he's so good on the ball and with his breakaway runs and support, I think he gets overlooked quite a lot. If you said to me we was getting Rice and Kane this window, I'd snap your hand off. I think that would help us no end going into next season, in particular. So yeah, I suppose it's one of them going into the summer transfer window in particular.
It's a budget issue, isn't it, though, Rice? Declan Rice, it'd be a budget issue.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Martial,
know where we touched.
Maguire, and 20 million.
I mean, you've got Bellingham going to Real Madrid with 120.
Yeah, I think Bayern Munich are interested in Rice by all accounts.
With add-ons, so you're going to pay, 100, 120 for Rice, 80 mil for Kane. If we go for Kane, it won't work budget-wise. It won't work financially, unfortunately. Why isn't Rabiot on a free? Is Rabiot?
Yeah, Rabiot's
out of contract.
Yeah, he's out of contract, isn't he? I'll tell you who else is out of contract as well. Keylor Navas.
I don't like Keylor Navas.
I think he's a great keeper.
Great fan. He gives me Daya vibes.
I'm not sure he's the right one to take over our number one spot. I think we still just have the same issues rather with De Gea now.
He's not a number one. It'd be a great backup.
A backup.
Yeah, well, I heard Butland's going to Rangers, so
yeah, that looks all but done.
Yeah, so we're going to need a good backup. Heaton's constantly injured; he'll retire in the summer, so you're going to need a good backup.
So just quickly to everybody, quick answer from each of you. Do we think it's a guarantee that De Gea signs his contract, Sarah?
I think so. Yeah. He's indicated that he wants to finish his career with us, so I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, from his comments, I kind of tend to agree, but watch this space. We'll wait and see.
Stu, do you think it's a guarantee?
If he can't go back to Atleti, yeah.
What about you, Tone?
The thing is, right, let's look at it like this. He wants to stay at United, right? Because out there, unless, like Stu said, because he has said in the past he wants to go back to Atletico, unless Atletico want him back or a team in Spain that he deems to be big enough for his, like, because ultimately De Gea's, for much he's had bad patches in the past few years, he's still a very admirable goalkeeper. A lot of teams will want him because of his shot stopping ability. But yeah, I think Ten Hag's going to try, and the negotiation team at Man United will definitely, it won't be anywhere near what he's on now. I looked on Google earlier how much he was on, just out of curiosity. He's on 400 grand apparently, but I don't know if I could take Google for gospel.
I think it's 375. Yeah,
375. Yeah.
It's 400 grand, didn't give or take. I mean, that's not Spurs.
No, it's a lot of money, whichever way you look at it. So, just obviously, it's the end of the season. Individually, what would you rate the season out of 10 from Ten Hag, from United? And like, did it exceed your expectation? Do you think we did worse than we should have? So just from your opinion, what would you rate the season out of 10? We'll start with Tone.
I'd say like an 8 out of 10. Honestly, my expectations were shockingly low at the start of the season. The last season was the worst season I can recall as a being alive as a United fan.
Oh, Louis Van Gaal was pretty bad.
No, this last season was the worst. Last season was so much worse. It was so painful to watch some of the games last season. And I think Ten Hag's coming in. Don't get me wrong, we're a work in progress. I think a lot of people on Twitter, people on the internet, I think they're very short-sighted and they don't realise that what Ten Hag's trying to do is something we're not going to see the fruit of the labours until 2 years from now. We'll be talking about this, Dave, 2 years from now, going, remember when we got to the FA Cup final the first season with these X, Y, and Z? And we'll be going, look at where we're at now. That's how well I think Ten Hag can do for us. I see Ten Hag being... It's the first manager since Mourinho where I thought this could be something where it leads at like a legacy, like a proper legacy. Obviously, it didn't work out at Mourinho. I was completely wrong with that. But, you know what I mean? It's the first time I've thought about it since that time. But yeah, I think if you told me at the start of the season, my mate said it to me. He said at the start of the season, if someone said to you, you can finish top 4 comfortably, you can have a League Cup, and you get to another cup final, you'd bit someone's arm off for it. So, I mean, I know that sounds mad in, like, when we look at it now, the amount of games like the Europa League where we could have really gone on to have won it. But hindsight's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I'd give it 8 out of 10. I think there's still things to do and ways to go, but I think it's a good first season for Ten Hag and the team.
Yeah, after watching that Europa League final, I have no idea how he wasn't in it. It was an absolute awful game of football. What about you, Sarah? What would you rate the season out of 10?
I would say 8 as well. Same as Tony. My expectations were so low. I mean, when we brought in Ten Hag, obviously, I thought, well, I was more curious than anything, but I thought this could be a good choice. But yeah, I've been really pleased with him. It's definitely going to take some time, but I like his attitude. I like, what he's planning for. I think hopefully things will get better from here. And I know people like to wind us up and say it's only the League Cup, but winning that, I think it was just a really big lift for everybody, just to show hopefully that this is the first of many trophies. There's so much we need to improve on, but by and large, I think our signings have been good. I've been very impressed with Casemiro, Martinez. Just looking forward to seeing who we can bring in now, but I think we're definitely building something here, so 8 out of 10.
What about you, Jess?
Oh, it's been splendid. No, to be fair, I think my expectations were so low at the start of the season that kind of where we are now is just a pleasant surprise, to be honest. For me, I'm probably going to rate it about a 7, just because I think we should, or I wish we'd have done better in Europe. But having said that, like these guys have said, if someone had said to me at the start of the season, you get FA Cup final, only beaten to City, who, let's face it, are probably like the best team in Europe right now. and a trophy. Yeah, I know it's just the League Cup, but it's a trophy. So yeah, for me, overall, I'm happy because I just think it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And whilst there have been some kind of low moments for the season, overall, I'm just relieved it's not as bad as I thought it could have been.
Yeah, no, Jarvis is just put on here. Remembering the feeling after losing the first 2 games of the season, and it felt like it was going to be maybe not a relegation fight, but an absolute horror season again. So yeah, what about you then, Stu? How do you rate the bold-headed genius?
Yeah, I come down on the a similar score of an 8. Look, I said pre-season that if Ten Hag can get us to win 10 games in a row, then it'll take us somewhere. We did, and it has, and I think that's what you can expect from football. And that's what you can expect from Ten Hag. Yeah. As for what Tone was saying about Van Gaal was a breeze, fella. If you grew up in the 70s, mate, and watched the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
No, it weren't me. No, I'll say last season was the worst season that I've experienced in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Even worse than the David Moyes season.
Yeah. So look, I'm really pleased with how it's gone. But you've got to kick on now. Season's done. You can't dwell on the season. You've got to move on now. He's got out quickly. He's got to get what he wants. I would imagine that when he did his goals and aims for the season, I think where we finished off would be a lot longer than where we started. And he would have started with his goals and aims being top 4. That's it. He would have wanted a trophy, but we've done top 4. Well, we finished 3rd. Trophy in a final. What can semi-final of the Europa League? We're there, aren't we? We're doing very, very well. So I think he could, if he has a good, strong transfer window, I think it could take us a lot closer. We're still quite a distance from City, but I don't think we're a million miles away from them at the same time.
I think with stuff like that, it's difficult to judge City because they're just. I mean, you look at the Liverpool team chasing them and getting 97 points or 99 points and still not winning the league. City are a bit of an anomaly, the way they work. It's obviously going to be a huge catch-up in terms of effort to get on their level. But it's never as far away as people think. It changes so quickly. I would give us, I think we've done a solid 7 out of 10 this season. We spoke about, me and Stu were fans of Solskjaer. And we talk about when Solskjaer was at the club, we was getting to semi-finals again and we was getting to finals again. And it gave you that reason to sort of just be nervous, to be upset, to be angry with a performance, because at least we was in these finals to actually be angry with a performance. So I think Ten Hag's done that again. He's brought the club back together. And let's be honest, he's had such a difficult season with Ronaldo, with the bloke that shall not be named. He's had a lot of things to deal with this season, and I think he's dealt with, I would say, 99% of it extremely well. I'll reiterate what I said on the previous show and a few of my tweets. I saw Solskjaer do this, bring this sort of unity back to the club. He was heading in the right direction. He had a list of names that he wanted, irrelevant of experience or cost, and he wasn't backed. And I'm just hoping we see in the summer, and I'll touch back on Mason Mount on this one. I'm not convinced Mason Mount is a Man United signing, but if Ten Hag wants him, I hope he gets him. And I think that's going to be really important to the future and to whether he's a success or not. So I'll just add one last question for everybody. Seems it is the end of the season. Who would you give your player of the season to? And we'll start with Jess on that one. Put you straight on the spot.
Oh God, stress. I am gonna say I kind of want to give it to Casemiro, to be honest. I've just really, really enjoyed watching him play. I think he's brought a little bit of fight. We kind of mentioned it earlier, a little bit of fight that we've not seen for quite a while. I think he's kind of raised the level of the players around him. So whilst I think he's made some rogue choices, let's say, throughout the season, I've given it to him just because I quite like his playing style. He's a bit of a savage, really.
Yeah, I think we know what you're referring to. What about you, Stu?
Well, it's got to be Casatinas, hasn't it? It's got to be the two of them.
Casatinas, yeah.
You know, I can't. You know, as a fellow centre half, I like the way Martinez plays, very old school. But you know, before I went back to centre half, I was a holding midfielder, so I like how Casemiro plays as well. Very similar to old school way of playing football, which is ridiculous because football's football, but it's not a modern way of playing, and they don't like it. Players don't like it today, so I can't split the two of them. I think they've both been phenomenal.
What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. Those two have been fantastic. The two best signings of the season. I'm going to say Casemiro as well. And I love the fact that, you know, certain people, Graham Souness, doubted him, and he's just proved them wrong. You know, it's like, why are we bringing this guy in? He's past it, or what was it? He's not a great player. He was, you know, he's in a great Real Madrid team, but he's not a world-class player, and he just proves everybody wrong. Yeah, I'll give it to him. But I want to say as well that I think Rashford has got back to his form has been amazing this season. So honourable mention to him.
Yeah, go on then, Tone.
Tom Heaton. No, I'm joking. Lissandro Martinez, the butcher. I've watched him play so many times in person this season, and I can't believe someone who's that small in stature is that amazing. He's fearless. I've not like the thing is, Casemiro has been amazing, but I expected Casemiro to be amazing when he came to us. Like, whereas Martinez has exceeded every expectation of what I thought he'd be. I want to say De Gea. I'll tell you this, right? De Gea had some really good games this season. Leicester, he was mint against Leicester.
I'm going to say Harry Maguire. No, I'm joking. I think Martinez.
Harry Maguire, Dan. Harry Maguire on his stretch of 12 games, 13 games.
He's only lost 2 all season.
Exactly. He'd be up there. You know,
I have this argument every day on Twitter. He's had a very solid season this season. He was awful last season, but so was everybody. And then he had 2 very, very good seasons the season before. So I would say 3 or 4 seasons he's been pretty good for us. But no, I'd go with Leacher. I think it's a similar reason to you, Sarah. It was Jamie Carragher coming out and saying he's not tall enough, he's not going to be good enough. And it turns out he's an absolute beast. And he's been a massive miss since he got injured. Which, by the way, I've watched that back so many times and I still don't understand how he got injured. He kicks the floor. Does he kick the floor? It's like he turned over on his foot. I just.
Well, his studs cool. His 2 front studs cool.
So baffling. But yeah, I'd give it Leacher he's an absolute beast. What a bargain as well. We didn't overpay for him. It was a decent bit of business from us for a change. By the way, to touch on Garnacho and the season he's had, because like Sarah and I think like me and Stu have definitely agreed on this, we can't wait to see him play next season. He cost us 100k.
Yeah.
What a bit of business that would be, because we'd get 80 million for him now, 85 million easy. So that's the first bit of good business that I've seen. I'm a little bit worried in terms of going into the transfer window for sales again. As a whole, I'm hearing that we're going to take 10 million for Elanga, which I find mental.
He's going to Italy, isn't he?
I'm not sure where he's going, but 10. If it's just
got to be
with
a buyback clause on it. It's got to be with a buyback clause.
They've got to start doing something to be a little bit more proactive as a club when selling players in particular, because we seem to get fleeced. Bearing in mind, Liverpool got 25 million for Danny Ward, and he'd never kicked a ball. They got 28 million for Solanke. There was another one, Jordan Ibe. Can't remember how much they got for him, but it was absolutely load.
It was 12, I think, for Jordan Ibe. It was a lot anyway for him.
Yeah, it's just madness. So yeah, I think that's been a bit of good stream. We'll leave it there, and we'll look forward to obviously the next one. I know Barry's got quite a lot planned in terms of shows over the next few weeks. He wants to do sort of like a keep sell sort of thing. So that's going to be quite interesting. I'm on holiday for that one, so I'll be watching from Spain. But yeah, it's been disappointing day for all, I think, in terms of the result. But it's good to see that not many people have been too down about the performance, because overall I don't think we was that bad. Obviously you have your reactionary moments, and I'm very guilty of that sometimes, but it was, after 13 seconds, it was probably the best we could have hoped for in terms of it not slipping away too fast. So thanks for everybody joining. It's been nice to see everybody in the comments. Obviously Box has made a fantastic point here, which is Forza Inter Milan.
We're all Inter, aren't we?
Not even going to, like, will any of you watch it next week? I'm not going to put myself through it.
Come on, you got to watch it.
No, I can't.
No,
I can't.
I'm with
Really?
Sarah. I'm definitely not watching it.
If they're behind, I'll put it on.
I made that mistake. I would definitely not watch it, because the last time there was an English team in the final and they was behind and I turned it on was Liverpool against AC Milan. So that will never happen again.
Do you not just watch it just for fun?
No, I can't watch
really?
it. I'd prefer to turn it on and find out they've lost 2-0 than after beer them win it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah, right. So thanks for joining me on the show. It's been fantastic again. Thanks for all the comments and everything. And we'll see you on the next one.